Josh and Frankie with a couple of dumb shits. Hello, Primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations! There are many places to find us at Primus Tracks on Instagram and Threads. PrimusTracksPod@gmail.com is the email address. And, of course, the Facebook page appropriately titled Primus Tracks. Perhaps you've heard that Primus has a new drummer in John Hoffman. We'll have more on that at a later date. On today's episode, we continue our conversations with the people who were there from the early days and talk about their lives in the Primus world. This time we go way back with Dave Flapjax Libby, whose nickname may sound familiar to those of you who closely read your liner notes. Dave has been a friend of Les and Primus for 40 years. I was fortunate to meet him at the Claypool Gold New Year's Eve and knew we had to speak with him on the podcast. Dave Flapjax Libby.
Welcome to this world. When he dropped off the Primate tape, the house where Chris and Curveball lived.
Okay.
The Exodus guys lived upstairs.
Yep.
And Curve and Chris lived downstairs. And he came by and dropped off the tape. And I remember meeting him and going, he left and there's it's like a set. And I'm like, who's that dude? And oh, here's the music. It's like, well, it's, we were all into music. And so his weird first tape, the first Primate tape was like, well, that's cool, And I don't remember exactly how or who was in the bands originally, but my brother was one of the drummers.
Yeah. Yep.
And Curveball was one of the drummers.
Yep.
And,
First time I saw Primus, Curveball was drumming.
Yeah. It's Les's band.
According to Les, Curveball never flushed the toilet after he took a shit.
Well,
it's one of the reasons why he's like, fuck this dude. Tired of looking at his turds every time I come in to take a shit.
I can vouch for that. When Les used to live with Curve, and when he moved out, I moved into Les's room, and I lived there for a while. And yeah, I mean, I actually lived with Todd for a while in the city. Wow. Me and Todd and Julie. Did you ever know Julie Wood?
I do not. No.
She's like an old friend, and she ended up she was a dancer, and she ended up moving to New York, and we kind of didn't hear too much about her for a while, and then she turns up in that Madonna book. She was all over the Madonna book.
Is that who Les sings about in the Danza Jig?
Julie Tolentino?
Yeah, probably. She's
Change
Julie,
the names to protect the innocent?
Yeah.
Or
so me and Julie and Todd lived together in the city for a while. And then Todd was about to be a dad, and he was quitting.
Yep.
And I just remember the band, at that point, we'd been working with other bands like, Big City and the Looters and all this stuff in the city. And
we were rocking in the Bay Area at the time.
Yeah, we were having a good time. And with Primus, hey, dude, we got a show at the Berkeley Square. You can get in for free if you just help carry the gear in. Is there beer involved? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. And so,
I got 2 drink tickets for you, dude.
Yeah. So you just end up going to the show and going in through the side door and carrying the shit. And then, a year later, it's like, hey, dude, we're going to LA. We got a show with Jane's Addiction and Fishbone at the Scream in LA. It's like, jump in the van. I'm like, okay, let's go. Everybody was kind of doing it for the fun of it. It was just fun.
Totally.
It was like the best thing. It's like, oh, your friends are starting to getting a little bit of juice going. And around here, all the little clubs.
None of us got paid back then is the thing,
Right. Getting paid was secondary to just getting a gig.
Just for the fun and the factor of seeing our buddies or our friends up there ripping it, opening for the Chili Peppers or Fishbone was like, yeah, what's up?
We did so many gigs.
Okay, cool.
There were so many shows with those guys back then.
Yeah.
Because they were the Chili's and Fishbone and Jane's Addiction and Faith No More were all these bands that were kind of coming up around the same time, and nobody was really famous yet. So we'd end up doing shows or going to shows or being at shows. And I wasn't officially working for anybody. There was I don't think anybody was officially doing anything. These are my buddies. And so you're just going to shows because it's fun and you're meeting all these other people. And it's all of a sudden, everybody's kind of famous.
What happened? Omni's got a line around the door.
Yeah.
Around the block,
did you ever go to the Sushi Sundays at Night Break?
Primus didn't do any of those when I
Oh, we did.
They escalated past that really quick.
Yeah, it was like Haight Street, I-Beam, and Night Break, and all this place there. It was like if you could get like a Tuesday somewhere, and then you're working your way up to a Friday at the Omni.
Yeah.
Or if
the I-Beam.
If you could do the I-Beam, that was like that was the best.
I mean, dude, some of those early days with Jay on drums, we did the Night Break, and it was like half full,
Oh man!
But it was like a Wednesday night. It's like, well, dude, Les is like, thanks, man.
Right. It was still fun because you could meet you'd meet the promoter, and he'd be like, well, my girlfriend is the promoter at the Ivy. Maybe I can get you a gig over there.
Yeah.
Or so, and it was like the crowds kept getting bigger and more intense and more fun. So every show, it felt like it was getting more and more and more. Like,
it happened really quick, dude.
It was such a fun ride,
Between 88, 89, the end of Jay and Todd, into Tim and Lur getting the band, it was like this fucking 1,000 people difference suddenly.
Yeah. And it was definitely like lines around the block, every place. And
for guys like me and you that were friends of them and just helping out for fun,
it
was just kind of like, whoa, you had to step back and go, really? Is it... all right.
What are all these people doing here?
Yeah.
But that's how you kind of, I think, in like a better position at some point, like a more responsible position at some point. I think being there early like that and like having the trust of all the guys and, you're like one of us. So
totally.
Like, if you're like, maybe you're smart enough to do, this tour manage thing, or maybe you're smart enough, maybe you're good, you were always, you already knew everything there was to know about drums and shit like that. So you could easily get a job like that, but like that's it all just kind of happened because we were friends, it wasn't
totally.
Like,
I was the outsider because I put myself to Les at a show in Petaluma, like, dude, you're wrapping up your fucking bass cable. You don't have a dude to help you. He's like, hey, give me your fucking number, dude. I'll call you up, dude. Yeah. Sure enough, he called me 2 days later. Goes, we're playing at Berkeley Square on Friday. You want to come?
Berkeley Square?
Yeah, I do, dude. This is fucking awesome. So when I met all you cats, when I started hanging out in Berkeley and Oakland and those shows with you guys, I didn't know fucking anybody, man.
Yeah.
Like nobody. But
but
you and Jay and Todd and Trows was not even around at that point.
See, it's funny because we knew Jay. I knew Jay from like the Uptones and the Freaky Executives.
Right.
It's like because we were out so much. We were out like every night going to shows.
Yeah.
So, and there was such a crazy scene back then. It was like you could go out just about every night and see something somewhere. And everybody knew everybody else, so you just go to your friends' shows and see whoever was there that night. You didn't even care. It's just like I'm going out somewhere. And I'm going to see music from somebody I know. And it was like, so it was...
And it was always good.
Everybody else.
But he was always good because we all knew who was the cool cats and who had the good bands to bring you to get hip to,
There was like the whole parallel like metal scene too,
that's where I came from.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like at the Stone and the Mab every night on the weekends.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
so Exodus and Slayer and Megadeth and
but
they were just like nobody even knew the fuck what was going on. I was the dude there at those shows.
Yeah,
when I discovered Primus, Les was like, "Yeah, dude, Blind Ill, dude." I was like, "What? Huh? How do you know Blind Ill?" He's like, "Dude, I was in the band, man."
Oh, dude,
Larry from Possessed. I was like, "Oh shit!"
We would go
on Possessed all the fucking time.
The Ruthie's Inn.
Yeah,
Ruthie's,
Metallica and Exodus and Possessed and Slayer. Because it was like, I mean, it's like in this tiny little place, but it would be like the walls would be sweating. People would be fucking.
It was a great time, man. That late mid '80s, man.
Yeah.
It was
like Bailoff from the lead singer from Exodus just lived up the street from me. And so
amazing.
So you kind of and then I find out that all these bands like came like from the same high school.
Also Brady High.
Yeah, it's crazy. That high school spawned so much like death metal and weird shit. It's like I don't know what was going on there at that time, but man, a lot of stuff happened there.
Yeah.
Speaking about the 80s, I wanted to ask you if you recall listening to all the demo tapes that they put out before Suck on This.
Yeah, they were always around, you know. We'd get them because we'd be driving around in Les's car, and it would be playing. So
Carmen Gia.
yeah, yeah, the Carmen Ghia. He had the El Camino.
Yes.
Yeah. I think he sold the El Camino for like to make T-shirts or something. Something the El Camino got sold for something to do with the band.
Yeah,
Wow.
totally. Everything always did.
It was super punk rock in that way. Real, DIY. Keep total control yourself. And
CG would come home with a box of swatches from Live 105,
oh yeah.
and him and Les would sell them to get cash. Like,
Well,
print T-shirts.
CG used to live across the hall from Big Rick.
I totally do.
All right. Yeah.
I'm saying they had a little game going on. A little
Oh, yeah.
scam. It was great. Hustle.
Yeah. Well, I never knew. Like, I always known CG as this like totally calm, centered, kind of super cool guy, but like, there's another side of CG that I think the previous version of him, like before the Marines and before when he was growing up, that he was a tough son of a bitch.
Yeah, he was a
I
ghetto
remember-
freak, dude.
I do remember one time we were at this show at the MAB, and it was back really in the early days, and it was when the Skinhead gang was like kind of running roughshod over a lot of the shows. And there's one guy, I can't remember his fucking name, but he had this like bullet hole tattooed in the back of his head, in the back of his neck, and there was like they were causing trouble at the show. We were outside. A bunch of the Skinhead guys were causing trouble, and they fucking I don't know what they were doing, but all I remember was like the sea kind of parting, and like this little like shark comes right through and like decks this skinhead dude and knocks him completely out on the sidewalk. And it was like, oh, that's fucking CG. Like,
So funny, man. I didn't meet CG until him and Les were living in that apartment in San Pablo or wherever the hell that was.
yeah, San Leandro.
He
Or
was
something.
San Leandro. Yes, San Leandro.
Yeah.
And he had Go Mad going on, and he was working for Live 105, and it was just like this cool dude that was Les's buddy. And I was bringing them bread and granola from that Lotus Bakery I was working at.
Yeah, and his brother would always make would make all the claymation stuff.
Yeah, and so they were
Nice
super
plants.
cool to me, and he was cool. And then Les would tell me sometimes, he goes, "Dude, that dude's a bad motherfucker, man. You're just seeing like this nice dude, but that dude's got an other side, man." I'm like, I never seen it, man.
I never seen it either. Well, that one time I saw it, I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit, don't fuck with CG.
Dave, what do you recall about hanging out with his brother, with Link? Because he's quite a mysterious figure, but
I don't know.
he's
Link.
Lance just like totally goofy. My recollection, my impression of him, he was like a big goofy guy, kind of. And this is pretty foggy, almost like Jay's kind of like this big shambling goofy bear.
Yeah.
Lance is a little bit like that to me, but he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't. I didn't see him that much. He really wasn't there all the time. I just remember seeing a lot of the artwork and I'd run into him, but he wasn't around. He didn't come to shows.
Yeah, I never met that dude ever.
Yeah.
You're dropping a lot of names, and there's all these dots to connect. It's so fun to talk to you, Dave, because you're the oldest of the old guard, and I mean that in a complimentary fashion, of course.
Oh yeah, no,
I
thanks.
mean, it's going so far back, So it starts with Trows. You start hanging with Trows, and then you're just in this group of folks working your way, not even probably consciously working your way in, but just becoming involved with this group of people that have friends in bands and so on, and then off you go. So what was that like? You start hanging with the Trows. Exodus guys are in the same building as you. I mean, did you, up to that point, was that something you had even thought about or aspired to, or you just thought, these guys are cool, I'm going to hang?
It kind of grew up around that. My mom was like kind of like our godfather, like this guy called Ralph Gleason, who was the founder of Rolling Stone magazine.
Oh, dang.
This really prominent jazz critic and music writer, wrote for the Chronicle, and so growing up, my mom knew a lot of people. She knew, she dated Miles Davis.
wow, that's incredible.
Things like that. So I kind of had, when Ralph died, we ended up kind of living at the house, and the amount of music in his house, like if you imagine just like kind of a giant living room with floor to ceiling records of like everything you can imagine. And then every day he was on every mailing list. So every day you'd go to the door and you'd get like, oh, here's all the shit from like Blue Note. Here's all the shit from Columbia. And you just open up the boxes and see what was in it, like tons of records. And just so you just sit there and listen. And like when I was a kid, I would just listen to music, put on the records, sit there and read the liner notes and like who was the producer and who like
Yeah.
where was it recorded and what
Yeah.
are the lyrics and who wrote them, you know. So it was just like something that was always there, but I'm not a musician. I'm not you know, I don't have that kind of same creative spark, I guess. But growing up around that, my brother's a musician, my
Right.
stepdad was a musician, my mom's kind of was an artist. You learn how people like that think. You know, I'm better with like the business side of things. So, you know, I'm more organized about stuff and I'm more like getting things done. I understand like there's an intersection between like creatives and you know and business people, and somebody needs to kind of be in the middle of that and like interpret for both sides. And that's turned out to be something that it was kind of natural for me. That's kind of how I think how I ended up in a lot of the places I ended up in. You know, like it wasn't like a conscious decision.
Yeah.
After a while, you kind of find yourself like, wait a minute, I might be, you know, I'm kind of good at this. You know,
Yeah.
like I can talk to these people, and they both want to trust me, and like both are kind of let me do this. So
Yeah.
it's like a, I don't know, it just kind of worked
That's
out.
that's the difference of me knowing everything about what's going on stage. Nothing to do with the money and the breakdown and this and that's where you were
Yeah.
with
See,
your
I was
game.
the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when we were on tour, the production side of it was like handled by somebody else. You know, I didn't deal with production. You know, when you're on the road, I stay with the band. You know,
Mhm.
I'm with the
Yep.
band all the time. I'm on the band bus, I'm in the band hotels, I'm on the band schedule. But getting them, you know, to where they need to be and taking care of the merchandising and the travel and the ground transportation and the buses and then every problem that happens is like well, you know problems at the venue,
Mhm.
getting paid or getting you know merchandise, you know personnel problems, all that shit kind of falls on one person eventually, you know.
Mhm.
And so but I don't, you know, I never was there to set up stuff. Like
Yeah.
Soya and those guys have a fucking way harder job because those guys, I mean, they never get any rest. They're
Yeah.
there from like 6 in the morning until 2 at night. Then they sleep on the bus and they get back up the next day and take a shower at the gig. And it's a rough life for those guys.
Yeah. I have
I
to
had to be,
imagine though the most welcome aspect for the musicians is for a friend of theirs such as yourself, Dave, to say, I can do that. I can take care of that. And then that weight is off of, you know, a young Les Claypool or a young Tim Soya, so they don't have to deal with any of that junk. Like you said, they know you and trust you,
yeah. I
and
mean, that's how I got kind of the, you know, it went from being like unpaid and doing it for fun and having your friends. And then there was a while there where they were like on the upswing and on the road, and I had a real job. You know, I couldn't go out and go on the road to them, but Chris could. So he became the tour manager, kind of the de facto tour manager, and he got pretty good at it. But after a couple of years, they got to the point where they were like he could use an assistant. So I like I came out. You know, I had a job as a supervisor for construction. You know, I was, you know, it's
oh, okay,
pretty well paid. I had a good job.
yeah,
And he invited me out on tour. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take a vacation and I'm going to go out on tour with these guys. And I think it was the Rush tour. I think it was the second one.
second one, Counterparts tour '94.
And right after that, it wasn't the second one because right after that, we ended up going to Australia.
Okay,
So for Big Day Out. So I was like the, you know, I was supposed to take video and help around, you know, get ice for the bus, do whatever you kind of needed to do to kind of, you know, help get things going because the band was getting bigger and there's more people and there's, you know, there's more things. So I started doing that and I came back from that tour and I just never went back to my job.
oh
Like
wow,
immediately, like a couple of weeks later, we went to Australia. And then right after that, Dave said, you know, Dave was managing Melvins, and he got me a touring with the Melvins and with Charlie Hunter. So I was tour managing for those guys.
oh wow,
What a tour.
Oh my God, dude, the Melvins. Melvins is like 29 shows in 30 days, no fucking days off,
yep,
in a van, driving every day. If like Buzz would just have like one small bag that was all he would take on tour. Had like deodorant, socks, and underwear. And he would just rotate that shit, clean it out, and then dry it in the van, and then off to the next place. Like all the
He
way.
wore the same shirt and same pants every single day
I toured
for a
Europe,
month.
Australia.
I know
all
about
across the
this.
U.S. with those guys. It was like insane. That's like they work so damn hard. I went from like the bus, doing stuff with Rush to like right into the fucking cesspool with the Melvins. But
That's
It's a different world there in that van.
dude. Same
Yeah.
shit we were doing back then.
yeah, well, I mean, everyone's got to go through it. You got to like put in your time in the van, you know.
I went the other way around. I went from the Victims Family van, quitting, Les calling me randomly, going, "Hey man, I moved up to Sebastopol. Hey, what's up?" I was like, "Dude!" All of a sudden, I'm like on this 44-foot Prevost tour bus with just me and Lessler, Tim, and Trouse.
Yeah.
I was like, "Is this happening?"
Yeah,
Like,
when-
are you
at,
cool, dude? Is the bus okay? I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
this
on
bus.
New Year's Eve, we were talking for a minute, and you mentioned that we'd never actually been on the same tour together at the same time.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I think he's right. So I was like looking up a few things, and the only time I think we ever crossed officially on tour was you drove all the stuff up from the Bay Area to the first day of the Mountain Air Festival
Okay.
and-
Oh yeah.
for the Frog Brigade tour.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
And spent the
we
night there,
played,
and then
I
drove home
think-
the next day. It's like that's the only time it was ever official. But like,
Right,
you know,
Derek Trucks played, I think. Yeah,
it was like,
it was J-Ski on drums. I remember.
yeah, it was
I was
my-
doing everything. I was the only tech for the whole band. And you
But I
showed
remember
up with
you
the band
saying
guys
this
and
too.
Les, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, dude,
But I
I'm
think
busy."
that was the
You're
one.
like, I'm going this way. I'm going that way.
My kind of like tour managing thing, I did that first stuff with Primus, like for 92 and 93. I was on a couple of tours as the assistant. And then I got the kind of promoted to, the tour manager for Melvins and Charlie Hunter and like L7.
Oh,
and,
sure.
George Winston, you know who George Winston is?
Yeah. Wyndham Hill, dude. Come on.
Yep. I did George Winston like all over the U.S.
I talked to you about this one time years
Yeah,
ago.
it's a crazy
You
gig.
were laughing. You're like in a car with George Winston driving around.
Oh no, he wasn't. I never saw the guy. He went in a car. He would
Oh,
be in
wow.
his own car, and I'd be me and this one other guy would be in like I would rent like giant Cadillacs because I could rent anything you want. And we'd be driving like we're doing like 25 dates just in Florida, or like
Wow.
30 dates in Alabama. It was like is that even possible? But
That's
it was.
insane.
So we'd show up, get the piano tuner there, and then he'd do the show and leave, and we'd leave the next day and like just show up. So I would see him for like 5 minutes a day, maybe. Never met.
Dream job, dude.
Dude, I don't even think I had a conversation with him more than like, do you need anything tonight? Like he didn't, he had everything he wanted. He had to put out like whatever waters or apple juice or whatever the hell he liked to drink. Yeah,
You landed one on
it was an
that.
easy gig. I ended up doing like the stuff for the prom song design
Oh, you did?
Adam
Okay.
and Lure. And so
That's awesome.
again, those guys were the creatives, and that was where Ruben Zoltron was too. So
Yeah.
those three guys were the creatives, and we were doing like the websites
Right.
for Interscope Records.
Yep.
So any band that had a new record on Interscope, we would do a website for, or Mountain Bike Magazine and a few
You were
other-
never at the San Rafael office that much.
I would go there, but those guys basically they worked in a dark room with lava lights and a lot of pot, and it was not conducive to my.
Don't forget who was
lifestyle.
downstairs taking care of all the gear in the jam room and the warehouse.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that was Derek was there too, and that was like
Derek was not there.
Derek, well,
you
that was
kidding?
He was there the
that
one
was the
day
place that was
Dave
right next door
stopped
to the
by.
Grateful Dead stuff.
He was next
They
door
had their-
doing fucking ultrasound shit. He had nothing
Yep.
to do with Bronson.
So
Don't ever give that guy credit for anything Bronson.
not for prom song. So I did kind of ostensibly I was the business guy, and I would like,
Okay.
people who were going to pay us, or
I mean, for real, it was Lur, Adam, and Ruben.
right. And like I said, I didn't have to work in the office with those guys. I couldn't. I mean, there was a lot of pot. So I couldn't. I still can't smoke pot. Yeah, so I did kind of, did that for a while, and then that kind of broke up. Adam got a real job. I got a real job, and then
I got a real job.
yeah. Well, then how when Tim left that first time, and Brain came in, Brown album was. I think everybody was getting along pretty well, but when Antipop came out, things were a little shaky.
Right.
And
I
so
left before that.
so Dave called me up and asked if I would tour manage them for like 98 and 99, I guess.
That's right when I left. I left
Right.
in '98 for a minute.
Because Dave said that I was the only person that all three of them agreed could manage the three of them.
Oh, wow.
My recollection is that Larry and Brain were pretty tight. Les and Larry had been like the inseparable, but now it was like Brain and Larry were kind of on one side. So I think Dave brought me in to balance it out. I ended up spending, most of that time, that whole year, whatever, or something, with Les in the back of the bus, just hanging out.
Yep.
We did like Family Values and
Right.
Ozfest and all the anti-pop stuff. That kind of after that is when they stopped.
Right.
And the next time I got a call was for like probably 2001 for all the Frog Brigade stuff.
Okay.
So I did that for like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Like
Really? Oh, I didn't know you were involved in that.
Yeah,
Did
you
a
were in
bunch
it
I
for a
did some
while.
stuff in and out, and you were never there at the Frog Brigade moments that I would get called by Derek. Dude,
Yeah.
can you get a U-Haul van and grab all this garbage and bring it up to this festival, Hippie
Yeah.
Fest in Oregon? I'm like, what the
I-
fuck?
Eventually it all kind of got to the point. I just remember being on the road. We were in like really nice hotels and we had a nice bus. It was as good as it gets until you get like to maybe the next like airplane level. Like, and all I could think of is like, if I have to fucking see the inside of another W or Fairmont hotel, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. And I realized at that point it was like, I think I got to stop doing this.
Okay.
I really enjoyed like being with my friends. That's kind of why I did it after as kind of as long as I did, because it was fun being with those guys. And it's
Yeah.
fun being on the road, and it's like this kind of adventure, and it's you and against the world, and you're in this bus, which I always thought of as like a submarine. You just
Yeah.
like it goes underwater at night and it pops up somewhere else, and if someone doesn't tell you where you are, you don't even really know. Like,
Yeah.
so
Dude, some of those summer festivals I've done, I mean, I still do, but back in those days in like the 2000s, and you
Yeah.
would do the sheds, the shoreline amphitheaters every day.
Yeah.
Ruben was asking me to write like a journal to post on the
Oh, yeah.
Bullboard. They're like when
All
it
right.
first started coming out. I was like, okay, cool. That's awesome because I'm super fan friendly and I love to give anything I can to the fans. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll do that. And I was like, oh, I need to read it before you put it out there. I'm like, hold on, me and Ruben have got this little thing going on. So I'd start like writing every day, like, oh my God. And it'd be like, okay, I didn't get to my journal for 2 or 3 shows and we were doing sheds every day. And it was like, wait, where were we yesterday?
right.
What was the loading dock? It was all the same. I realized you have to like notate
Yeah.
every single day because it just becomes the exact same fucking thing.
And you
every
go to the
single
same
day.
places like year after year, or sometimes a couple times a year. If you're on like different tours with different people,
God.
like oh, this place again.
Dude, and now you go on
Yeah.
tour and it's like, oh, we're at the Fillmore. Which Fillmore? There's like 26 of them.
Yeah.
And the whole tour is Fillmore.
Dude,
Some
I
gig,
I haven't been on
some
so
gig.
long, but
And
like-
they try to make them all look the same. So it all looks like the Fillmore in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Strange.
like I remember trying, like I would get a call usually, as soon as the tour kind of gets announced, and it's like, all right, you got to get with the travel agent and start arranging the hotels, and you got to get all the flights and all the ground transportation, hire the bus company, contact the crew, get all that shit ready, and then you'd make a tour book, like an actual little bound book.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they still have them anymore. I'm sure it's probably all on
They
phone by
they
now.
do, but people don't want them, so they don't really do them as much.
Yeah.
Master Tour is going on right now, so
Yeah, so I was looking at it, I was going, I bet they don't even do this. It's probably all on an app right now. And I saw a
it
master
is
tour.
Master Tour.
Like-
Yeah,
So do you remember Ruth? Jason's.
Yep.
So Ruth was like this file maker professional. She could, so data. So it's all a database. I'm always entering the same places every book. I just had a template. So I would work with her. We would make these FileMaker Pro databases so that you could make these tour books. And she ended up kind of selling them to other tour people. Like we started making those things really early on because it was like such a repetitive task to have to make all that stuff.
Doing the same thing. I had a few friends in that same moment in the late 90s, early 2000s were doing the same FileMaker Pro.
Yeah, that was because
why do we have to keep typing in every single information about this venue that we go to 6 times a fucking year?
Right.
That venue, and it goes
right. So yeah, I remember doing it all the hard way. It was like, I think when we first started going, it was barely cell phones. Maybe if you had one, it was like as big as a walkie-talkie. It was like
Sure.
And so it was like pagers. Everyone had pagers.
Yeah, those books pop up on eBay from time to time. I know Frankie's got a few. Yeah,
I got the collection actually.
There you go. There's one. Do you have that one, Frankie?
Let me see.
Ozfest. So this is Ozfest here.
Oh, right.
I have you dug in a box, dude. Look at you.
I have the black one.
I dug in a box. I got that one.
Anti-pop tour. All right.
Anti-pop, yeah.
You got a couple more, I think. Hold on.
My favorite about those, because I've seen samples of them, they have probably Flapjax your pager number in them. You know.
Yep.
I got Frog Brigade. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got that
one.
I got that one too.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got this one.
I got that one too. Yeah.
I probably have some more. I felt trying to find out like this. I'll send them to you. I know I have extras of a few.
That's incredible.
And old tour passes and
Oh, you got the tour passes. I'm always hunting for those.
I have a drawer full of tour passes.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, like literally overflowing drawer full of passes. I'm sure Soya's got more than I do. Soya's got 1 million.
I probably have a bin full of those dumb things.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because these days you go on tour and they give you the master tour and they go, here's everything on a file online, and they go, and you show up and go, okay, cool. They go, and here's your book, and it's like this thick. It's like, I don't want the book.
Right.
Why you guys even printed those? Well, there's a couple old people on tour. They want the book.
I just saved.
I have everything, man. I saved everything.
I saved a lot of the tour books and all the real information that I needed about, who's like, how much money we're supposed to get, all the contracts, and who I'm supposed to settle with, and how much, how to get a hold of the bus driver, whatever.
Yeah, totally, man. I'm at home right now. Like me and my wife, Nancy, we do not have anything rock and roll in our house. There's no posters up on the walls, framed.
I don't think I have anything either. Yeah. I never really saved all that much stuff. I didn't really.
Frankie and Josh, we've done these Primus tracks down where my drums are, and I have all that stuff hanging up, the gold records and all the bullshit, and the framed cool posters and some of my stuff. But at home, I don't want to see any of it when I'm home.
That's makes sense. It's nice to because you're still gone a fair amount. I'm sure.
Yes, I'm still doing it, man.
Yes, you're still out on the road all the time.
Yes, I'm still working for Primus.
That's true. Well, I mean, it is kind of amazing that they're still
on top of everything I do. I still work for Primus.
Yeah, now it's like I go to these shows, mostly to just hang out and see friends. Now I don't really.
Dude, that New Year's was amazing.
Yeah, Dave, tell us about your New Year's experience, because I know you're excited to go to that.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I mean, it was great to see everybody. That was the main reason. That's why I didn't go on New Year's. I went the 30th.
Yeah, that was the better hang night, dude. It was awesome.
Yeah, I had to see the Limbos because that was like the Limbos were so fucking good back when they were
dude
cranking. And I do remember sitting there on this side. The very first song, and I was standing with Les, and that first song was pretty slow and new.
Yeah.
And this was
that was a house dub jam.
He goes, I'm not sure if I would have chose this one as the opener. I'm like,
me and Brain tried to talk him out of it. They're like, no, we're doing it. Me and Brain are like, geez.
It was fun to see them, though. It was fun. Like, I haven't seen Pete since the fucking 90s,
Oh, wow.
So
I've seen him a few times, but yeah, he's super cool, man.
Yeah, it was really fun. And it was like the craziest thing is that everybody's kids are the same age as when we all first met.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Totally.
Yeah.
My
And
kids
it's
are in
like,
their 20s. Lucy
Yeah.
was there. My daughter was 21, 22.
yeah,
That
it's
show.
crazy to see everyone's kids and like, oh my God, they're all so big and like, like,
And we're all these like old dudes huddling in the corner talking about the I-beam.
oh yeah, yeah, we're like old gray-haired dudes now, We're like the thing that I was afraid you like turn into. It was like I
Yeah.
don't want to be one of those guys that's wearing like nothing but like tour swag from 3 tours ago with like scraggly hair and a ponytail and like a hot belly being backstage at like fuck, that's like I don't want to be that guy. It was like there we all were though.
It was great.
But it
I
was
mean,
fun. Like
Dave, I'll tell you, man, like I tell Josh and Frankie about the old guard and like how special it is when me and you and CG and Trows and
Dave, like seeing Dave at the show
like
was
it's a really cool vibe because we were there in the late 80s, mid to late 80s with Primus before anything even fucking was happening.
yeah. Well,
And
that's
all get together and go,
Yeah.
look at these guys. They've been fucking around the world 100 fucking times. They got gold records, and we're still just gonna look at each other and go.
I think that's a big part of it, though, too, is that
Guard.
if you're there before anybody gets famous, I think there's a level of trust because, like, they know that you don't want anything from them, Like, I'm not here because you're famous. I'm not here because you made a record that I really like or anything else. Just like, I've been here and I'll be here when you're not famous. I don't care. Like, I don't care about that part of it,
Dude, I've been around other bands that have done the same kind of vibe, but when us old guard Primus get together, the twinkle in the eye that we all have, just like whether we're doing just sitting there looking at each other, it's like,
it
I
was
can't believe you're here. Hey, dude.
Yeah,
It's like,
it was fun. Like it's like seeing Dave. Because he's been in Philly for a few years now.
yeah, he's back now.
Back in the Bay now.
I'm the first guy to meet Dave.
Okay.
In
was
the
at,
circle,
Yes.
way back when. Okay.
Yes, I forget whose show it was. I think it was like a Looters or a Big City show. It was at Bimbo's, and Dave was putting out flyers or on the tables for somebody else's show at our show, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this isn't your fucking turn. And like,
Busted.
He's smiley, so he's like, had no idea. Super nice. I'm like, all right, dude. And then I remember somehow he was like working for Rubinson, and I was like, well, okay, I guess you're kind of connected somehow. So anyway, eventually, he met everybody else. But I remember the first time meeting him at that show and being mad at him for bogarting our show. What are you fucking doing, dude? That's not cool.
First time I met Dave was at a show in Santa Rosa. Was No Means No, Beaten Eggs, Primus, and Victim's Family.
Dang.
Curveball was playing drums, and it was the first time I saw Primus, actually. And we're all hanging out, like having beers at this whatever warehouse show that Laurel Pine put on. And here's a friend of mine's talking to Dave. She's like, "Oh my God, you got to meet this guy. He's Primus's manager." Like, this is a punk show. The band
They have a manager?
And he like hands me his business card, and it's like the Sex Pistols style cut up letter, says Dave Lefkowitz.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, cool, thanks, dude. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Who is this band? And then the next time I saw him, 2 weeks later, Jay was the drummer.
That was
Probably
a big deal.
then.
And then it was
clicked.
like the roof went like up here, dude. Like
Oh, man.
whoa, shit, dude.
It is.
Yeah.
It's funny because everybody starts somewhere, and of course, Lefkowitz is as heavy as it gets now. But man,
Yeah.
he was just running around with you guys.
But he moved out here just on the hopes that he could somehow get in the music business. Like why he chose San Francisco instead of LA is a mystery because that seems like the counterintuitive. Like why would you go here?
Yeah.
Right.
But there was a pretty good scene here. I guess he had some connection with Rubinson, and that made sense.
Yeah,
But, dude,
that's what he told us. He had a connection there, and then it was just really fortuitous, the timing that he got out there just as all these bands are starting to hit it and the record labels are zeroing in on the Bay,
Yeah, it was.
But the scene in the Bay Area in the mid to late 80s, up until 1990 was absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Like you said, you could go any night and see any band you wanted to see. 80 clubs had a show going on every single night,
Do you know, and my girlfriend in like those years was Deanne Franklin.
Oh,
And she
okay. Yeah. Oh,
was
that's
the
right.
sound person
Yes.
at the I-Beam.
Yep.
So I ended up hanging out at the I-Beam so much that they just started putting me to work.
Oh,
So that's where I met Charuki and Booby, and like who
Okay.
to work for work for the guys for a long time, and they would put me to work as like, so I would be like the nice guy bouncer. If shit was, if you could, like, I would go up and say, look, I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, but if you don't stop doing what you're doing, those guys over there are going to throw you down the back stairs.
Right.
And then I'd be like, but like, but I hung out there so much that I was like, you got to do something, So that was
amazing.
like, yeah. So I mean, that's what I mean. What I would say, I was out every night. I think I kept like a notebook. I think I was out 250 something nights that year.
oh my gosh.
Like
Amazing.
every night, everywhere, just like going out. And I would get
yeah.
up at like 6 a.m. and then get to my job by 7 a.m. as a carpenter
Oh, jeez.
all day, and then go to sleep, and then go back out until 2 a.m. and then start all over again.
Dude,
Back when you
I
could
was
do that.
driving from
Yeah.
Petaluma to meet Les at the San Pablo fucking rehearsal room they had.
Oh
Load
yeah.
up the van after working all day in Santa Rosa, Petaluma, drive, load up. Primus would play, sit behind Jay Lane. Okay, then pack everything up. Get it, load it back in. Fuck, it's 2:38, 3 o'clock in the morning. Fucking barely weary-eyed, barely fucking swerving into my fucking driveway. And get up at 6:30 a.m. and go to work. And then it's like, fuck, Les is like, dude, we're playing the I-Beam tomorrow night. Oh, fuck, okay. How do we do that? I don't know how I fucking can get through that.
Les was working like doing roadie shit too. I mean, in fact,
Yeah.
he was working for the big city and Looters and
And the Looters, yeah.
Right.
But at the same time we were like he was, it was like we were all doing this. That's what I mean when I say we were all just a bunch of friends just kind of on this like ride together. That's what it felt like. It's like
Totally.
it didn't feel like it's like it was all so improbable. There's no way that anybody should ever be famous by doing this, But
Yeah.
but so many of the people that we were contemporaries with, or that they were contemporaries with, all ended up like super famous.
Yeah,
Like,
you mentioned Deanne Franklin, and that jogged a memory because it makes sense that you were together at the time because you're both members of the Fart Sandwich Posse, which of course I had to ask about.
I'm part of the Fart Sandwich Posse.
Yeah.
I am not.
I'm
Soya
also the
is
guy that carried me and Flounce and Fred carried Adam Gates in the Mr. Crinkle video.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure they might have even buttered us up so that we had sort of muscles would pop out more.
He didn't actually hit you with the whip, I hope.
No, I don't remember any actual pain.
That's good. I wanted to ask about a few specific things if you're game, and actually kind of wanted to start where people have probably seen your name the most, which is in the Frizzle Fry credits for the Fart Sandwich Posse. You guys participated in the stomps on the Southington Willoughby track and screamed "Calling John the Fisherman." So that was you, Deanne Franklin, Clem Donahue, Brain, Puffy Borden Trows, and Dave Lefkowitz. So were you hanging out at all during the recording of Frizzle Fry beyond that?
I find the studio to be literally the most boring thing in the world. I would rather shoot myself than spend like a couple hours in the studio. So
Sure.
Dave's office was right there at that was the name of that place.
Different fur?
There was a lot of
upstairs, yeah.
opportunities to be there, but it's like sitting behind that glass, watching the band go over and over it, and then watching the guy twist the knobs. Like if you're not doing something, it's literally the most boring place you could ever spend your time. So I avoided that stuff like the plague, I'm sure if I'd invited myself down, I don't think anyone would have said no, but there's no way I was going to do that. I was just,
That's why you're successful outside of the studio.
yeah, the studio
That
is
is
not
not
my
your
place.
realm, dude.
Yeah, I could never do that kind of stuff.
That's amazing.
But I mean, that's like that whole Fart Sandwich Posse. Those are again like Clem. Clem is like, I think I've known Clem since 9th grade. He's
Wow.
like
He's like a
older-
famous surgeon now, right?
Clem is like a pediatric like he's like the head of something at SF General for Pediatric Care.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, Clem's another fucking crazy, wild person that you think, how did hell did you end up as a doctor? There's no way. You know,
I got a few buddies like that. Yeah.
yeah. So the thing I always look back now, like especially when I go to shows like New Year's, Tim, I'm sure you know, you can remember a lot of people that didn't make it through all that stuff
Totally.
that got waylaid by all kinds of stupid things, you know?
Drugs or crime or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, all
We're
kinds of
both.
shit. Then you look back at like all these people in that room and you're like, holy shit, all of us actually made it to
Yeah.
this age and with like families and houses and like relatively unscathed by anything. That's
Yeah.
kind of the big miracle for me. I always look at it. It's like, how is that even possible? That's like
I have the same thoughts, man. And when I say that, I mean like when we saw each other, all of us on New Year's this year, and it's just like, and you know, me and you and CG and whatever,
yeah,
and we're all just kind of standing looking at each other going,
yep.
amazing.
Yeah, how
Made
is this,
it, yeah.
how is this possible that everyone is still here, you know? And,
Dude,
like, and everyone's
Flashback to
doing
1987. It's like, I can't believe we're all standing here right now
Yeah.
with
Yep.
what
I
you
think
just
about
said,
that.
families and houses.
Yeah.
You're
I
not
think
that
about
dude
that all the
anymore.
time.
You're not that dude anymore, but we can all come to
It's
Primus
like
and go.
it wasn't
"What's up?"
like anybody had a real plan or had a backup plan even. Like,
I had no idea back then.
yeah, I don't think Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know different, I don't think Larry's ever had an actual job. He's
No,
been a guitar
never.
player since he's like 15.
Never.
And he's
Amazing.
like, yeah, and
It's
like
one of his funny things that he'll say, like, I've never had a job in my life
Never
other
had a
than
job.
being in a band.
yeah. And so, but I mean, what does a guy like that do if something doesn't, if it doesn't work out, you know?
Yeah.
Like I always had I was a carpenter. I could build. I had a trade. Like you always have a trade
Yeah.
to fall back on. That's what I did. I had a trade to fall back on.
I do it every time I'm home between tours. I do all of that. Dude.
Yeah. So
I have to make money. I can't sit back and there's no royalty checks in the mailbox. Dude.
yeah, with like guys like in our positions, if you're not working, you're not making money. So like bands can take a year off or 2 years off and record, and if they're doing it right, they make money still. But
Yeah.
you got to keep going on the road. And so I would get back from tours and like determined I'm not fucking going out again. And then you get a call a week later and someone says, hey, can you do this 6 weeks and whatever? And you're like, I guess I should, because I don't know when the next check's coming if I don't,
Yeah,
So
totally.
you kind of keep doing that. But I don't think people get how good he is at what he does and how in demand he is. Like he's like the cream of the fucking crop,
I've
He's
got
like-
an idea. Yeah.
the gigs that he gets are the best gigs you can possibly get,
Well, come on,
I mean-
man. I mean, Dave, it's like you, like someone calling you going, hey, can you come and do new tile in my bathroom, my grandma's house? And you're like, nope.
Yep. Right. Can't do it. Like,
And
that-
when, like, Bono calls and says, I need a new granny unit built out on the back 40. Can you figure this out? You're like, yep.
Yep. That's kind of, yeah. That's kind of like,
Okay. You
So-
got that call. Not
Yeah.
everybody else gets that call. So
Yeah,
it's like
that's-
that,
But that is like, that's a lot of fucking hard work and dedication and not being a fuck up and being dependable,
Totally.
And like being on the road, if you're in it for any number of years, it will weed out everybody that isn't built for that.
It's the same as any gig, man. A lot of people always go, "Oh, your job's so great." It's like it's the same, man.
Yeah.
That's great that I get to travel around the world. It's not that much better that I get to go to a fucking hotel every night.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just going
And that-
home every
yeah.
night.
But people
Or-
don't get too is that I'm in this town for like one night and I'm at this venue for most of it. If like
Yeah.
occasionally you're like, this is fucking amazing. I got a day off in New York or something crazy
And
like
you're on the
that.
phone half the fucking day dealing with the band guys' problems.
Right. That's
In
rare
the
when you get
hotel
time
room.
off,
You don't even get
know?
to leave the hotel room.
Like it wasn't, like I've been around the world a million times, and it wasn't until I got married and started traveling on vacations with my family that I was like, wait a minute, I've been here, but I don't remember, I didn't get to see
Yeah.
any of this stuff.
Yeah.
You were working, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
certainly a different perception and a different way
And-
to experience it.
And even
Yeah.
like with the position that I was in, because I'm with the band, there's people that want to give you stuff. They want to take you out, or they want to take you golfing, or take you to the
The
petting zoo to
restaurants.
meet koalas. So you get to do some kind of cool things. I was in a different position than Tim's in because I got to be kind of where the band is. So there's a lot of perks that kind of flow that way for that party. But even still, it's still it's not an easy life, and
Yeah.
it's easy to make it seem glamorous to other people. You just tell them a few fun things they want to hear, and it sounds like the best job in the world. But
Totally. And they don't understand the monotony and
right,
the
Right.
boredom.
yeah,
And
like
it's
you're
just as terrible as your job down there.
yeah,
Down
like I am on this fucking
really
bus, and
not that
all I
much
have is
better.
this little bunk,
Yeah.
and this is a nice bus. This is a good as good as these buses get. And
Yeah.
that's still like my bunk is still just big enough for me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the highlights from the different tours that you were on? What are some of those shiny moments that you share with people? Because I've jotted down. You were on that '94 tour when they were about as big as they ever were. Primus, that is. The Family Values tour was infamous in its own right. So what are some of those different? And I know
Oh,
Les wasn't a big fan of the Family Values tour, but
no.
what are some things that stick out to you as
So
the
I'll tell you
pleasant
one for
memories?
sure is that we're doing Big Day Out and we're in Australia. We made it all the way to Perth.
Yeah.
It's always
And
the last stop on every Australian tour because
right,
that's as far as you can get from the US to get home.
right. So we had a day off, so we took a boat to this place called Rottnest Island, which is not too far off the coast, and it's famous for having these animals called quokkas, which are like little tiny kangaroo type marsupial guys, and they're super friendly. They have no predators on, I guess, on the island, so they'll just come right up to you, and so you can rent bikes and ride around this little island, looking at every perfect white sand beach that you've ever seen in your life, with this amazing Indian Ocean, like clear water, and you just keep riding around till you get to one where there's nobody, and then we're out in the water. These little quokkas are coming up, and I remember being in the water out like a couple hundred yards because it's super shallow, and the sand is like perfectly white and the water is just crystal clear, and it's like the ocean is as warm as the air, so it's perfect. And I'm sitting in the water and I'm looking around, and there's like Larry and Trows and Les and Tim, and I'm going, this is like a perfect moment. Like it doesn't get any better than this. Like this is I have to remember this moment because like what could be better than being on this adventure with your best friends?
And you're
And
getting paid.
right, you're getting paid, and and I'm having this moment where I'm kind of thinking, I got to remember this because this is like this is one of those things you can't let this one slip. And I go back, I way back onto shore, and I go to my bike and I get my water and I start drinking the water, and whoops, it's like I look out and the guys in the water are laughing their asses off unless or somebody had put seawater into my water. So it was fucking salty, and I'm like, there goes my fucking perfect moment, bastards.
Dude, the fucking tour shenanigans ended by the time I got there. They tried to pull that shit on me, and I said, bros,
Oh, dude, you were there for like cup of smell.
We've heard
I
a
know
cup of
about the
smell.
syringe of turd
The
as well.
syringe, yeah, the cup of smell went from fuck, dude, it was brutal because you'd just be sitting there minding your own business, and someone, mostly Chris, would fart in his hand and then put it over your face and
Yeah.
give you a cup of smell, and it'd be like, and so then it got to the point where somehow he ended up with one of those big like turkey basters type syringes, and so he was taking the syringe and he put it up to his ass and syringe up the smell and cork it and put it in the freezer on the bus. And then so you'd be sitting there doing nothing, and he'd,
Look who's calling.
no way. He would shoot that fucking thing,
What's up, man?
and it would be like this cold shit smell on the bus. It was like, that is a fucking awful memory.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun to think about, how mad everyone would get, and just like how stupid you are on the bus when it's just like there was like one tour we got on the bus, and the driver had just finished. He was from Tennessee, and he had just finished driving Marilyn Manson around.
Okay.
And we get on the bus, and I look in the fridge, and there's like 2 shells full of like mason jars of clear liquid, and I'm like, "What is that?" He goes, "Legit Tennessee moonshine." He goes, "Watch out for that shit, because it'll make you crazy." I remember several times on that tour, visitors and certain band members drinking too much of that moonshine and having like grab them off the bus, like going out the windows and pulling them back in, and people trying to open the bus door on the highway, and like crazy shit from, like things like that, which, you know, like the guys in Primus are genuinely like decent people,
Yeah.
and they're not like rock star people. They're not looking for that, all those rock star things. But I remember being on Family Values. Limp Bizkit's crew would hand out passes all throughout the night to pretty girls. And at the end of the night, they'd get them all up into like one section of the auditorium, and they'd tell anybody who was under 18 had to leave. So that
jeez.
would be like the first round of like girls and boys, and or girls or boyfriends would start getting in fights, because like the ones with the pass would want to stay and the other ones would have to leave. And then they'd like divide them up into like, okay, no guys. And then there'd be another round of fights, And then of the boyfriends and the girlfriends having a fight, and then the girls would stay. And then they'd turn them, then they'd say, all right, 18's over here, over 18, over 21 here. And so then they give out some passes, and then they'd like let all the girls into the backstage area. And it was so fucking gross, the whole
Yeah.
idea of that. And then sometimes, you'd see some of the more enthusiastic girls like at the next city, like somehow they got a ride on somebody's bus.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh
And
man.
like, that was like, it was like the worst of the kind of rock and roll, like supposed rock and roll lifestyle, kind of left over from like, people who thought they were Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
and the Primus life was just not like that.
Well, the good news is you didn't have to worry about girls at shows anyway for a long time.
Not really,
So
not so much.
like that wasn't going to happen. So that was never a consideration. But I know that just with interacting with those guys and knowing, like talking to people such as yourself, that by rock star standards, it was pretty tame out on
Yeah.
the road with Primus when they were the headliner touring.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone had a lot of fun, but it wasn't. It wasn't like debauchery and people passed out from too much drugs and girls on the bus. I mean, everybody had girlfriends, and nobody was. There wasn't people. It just wasn't like that.
I imagine a lot of the hijinks were just a product of boredom anyway, which
Yeah,
is
it was mostly fucking around with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I
that's
used
what
to, when I was in college, I was on the Ultimate Frisbee team, and it was a traveling club team. And we'd be in a maxi van driving 14 hours to go to a tournament. And it was there's 12 of us packed into a hotel room. So it was the same kind of thing, just screwing around with each other because we didn't have much else to do. We had a lot of testosterone, so I completely understand it. That mix of boredom and restless energy can make someone reckless, but it sounds like everybody mostly kept it in check.
Yeah, and there's a million like really fun memories like that over the time, and that's why I did it.
Yeah.
It was for that. It's like camaraderie and being with your friends and kind of having fun. And like I said, it just felt like an adventure. Like, oh man, this is fun. And this is not with Primus, but Trouse was like the tour accountant for Lollapalooza,
Oh wow.
and I was taking out Charlie Hunter, and it was like his first big tour, and we were going to open the second stage, and Green Day, kind of on their first big thing, was opening the main stage. The day before the show, and we started in New York at Randall's Island. That was like the second half of the tour. So driven across country with like a friend in a van with all the gear and the t-shirts, and we get to New York and we're hanging out, and I hook up with Trouse, and he goes, "Hey, do you want to come to the bank with me? I got to get some money to cash out all the vendors." So we go to the bank, and they take us downstairs, and they count out $250,000 in cash,
Oh jeez.
and they shrink wrap it up into a little brick, and we put it in his backpack. And so we're dressed in like, it's summertime. We're in like shorts and like sleeveless t-shirts, and we got a backpack with $250,000. And we're walking out of the bank, and I'm like, so this is where we get assassinated, right? This is how we do it. And remember, we got in the van to go to Randall's Island. The turnoff to get to Randall's Island is kind of confusing if you've never been there. And if you miss the turnoff, you end up in like this, like, all I remember is that there was a Projects right there where you get off.
Okay.
I remember so we're in the van. I missed the turnoff, and we're in the van at the stop sign, and I'm looking at the Projects and the people around it, and I'm like, we're not in a good place. I got a van full of all the gear, $250,000. Yeah. Like, there's like, so all right, we got to get out of here. So we get around, we go back around, we might find the freeway again. I missed the turnoff again.
Oh.
End up in the same place. And this time the guys are looking at us like, you guys are really lost, aren't you? And like, oh fuck, we have got to get out of here. And I just remember thinking, man, this is stressful. This is too much money to be carrying around. And, like, how does anyone even trust us with all this stuff?
Yeah. So there are moments that make you question your decisions, I suppose, or competencies, I guess.
Because we played so early in the afternoon, we had nothing to do for the rest of the day. So us and the Green Day guys would like commandeer golf carts, and that was when those big giant Super Soaker things were just coming out.
Oh yeah.
Just like we drive around trying to ambush each other with Super Soakers until like a couple of days into the tour, we got called to the tour director's office, and he threatened to kick us off the tour if we started getting anybody else wet anymore.
Oh wow.
Again, it's just stuff that you end up doing because you're bored and you're with a bunch of fun people,
100%. Yeah, you got to alleviate it somehow. It's it's like any other job. There's monotony. Soya's talked about it numerous times, but and every time I talk to Soya, if he's on tour, he goes, "Yeah, I'm in Lisbon today, whatever." And then I'm bored as hell in a hotel room. But so I know it's not the most glamorous thing, but you do get those really unique moments. So it's really cool to hear some of those that you've got.
Like, I think with anything else, you tend to only remember the good stuff, and you kind of forget, like, yeah, but for 20 hours, I was bored as hell.
Right, yeah, right.
But then, like, 3 hours of the day, it was exciting and fun, and you got to do something, and, then back to the bus,
Yeah.
So most of the time, you're in places where you just, even if you had time off, you wouldn't want to go out. There's nothing to see or do.
Yeah.
Like, you're just not in really cool places all that
Dude,
much.
the worst is when you get these big tours and they go, okay, the tour is New York City, LA, Paris, Berlin, and Rome. And then you go home and you're like, really? And you tell your friends, yeah, just doing this. They go, oh my God, you're going to the 5 points on the earth that I aspire to get to.
Yeah.
It's like,
no.
I'm not there on fucking vacation, man. I'm just like, airport, here, there, go home.
But
by the way, Les is the one who gave me that name.
Yeah, I was curious about that, where the Flapjax came from. That was kind of the big one.
I actually don't know either. Please tell, Dave.
Back then, I had pretty long hair, and it covered my ears.
I remember that.
And I used to drive, and I rode a motorcycle a lot. So that's all I had was a motorcycle. So at some point, I had my hair in a ponytail, and I took off my helmet, and Les was there, and he goes, "Look at those ears flapping around in the breeze." And it was like flapping, flapper, flapping jacks, flapjacks. It was like, I'll give you one tip. If anyone ever makes fun of you and gives you a nickname, pretend that you like it. Because if you fight it, it will become your nickname for the rest of your life. And I hated that he was making fun of my ears and like, oh, they're flapping around. And I was like, fuck, dude, that's not cool. And that just cemented it. So if anyone ever calls you a nickname that you don't want, just pretend that you like it, because then it'll go away.
Yeah.
But if you fight it, like, trousers from the old trouser trout. It's referring to,
Right. Yeah.
But he was something different before that. He was
trucker. Well,
Swamper or
Swamper.
something.
Yeah.
Swamper. Yeah.
I think it was because he, he's quite the dancer, and he used to, but he would sweat like so
Oh.
much. So it'd be like swamp ass from sweating too much.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was swamp ass or if he was just swampy from sweating, but I'm gonna guess
Right,
that's
right.
probably what that was.
Trouse,
Yeah.
brings the cows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
old trouser drought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Swamper is the pseudonym that he's referred to as in Harold.
Yeah,
the
I
Harold
was
song. Yeah.
I was with him a lot during those Herald days.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That
And
I guess it got pretty rough there, is my understanding.
Yeah, like Greenie. I mean, I remember when we met Greenie, he was like, "Do you guys know there's a new way to do coke?"
Oh, jeez.
And we're like, "No,
I don't do any of that shit.
yeah,
dude.
well, at the time it was like, do tell, really?
Yeah.
He took us down to the projects on Valencia, and he was well known enough that he got some. I remember trying it, and I'm like I, for whatever lucky reason, I don't have an addictive personality.
Yeah.
I'm the one who like, oh my God, look at the time. I have to get up in the morning, and I'll stop. But I think from the time Chris took that first hit, that was it, man. He was like, he would just go for days, until they ran out of money,
Hey, hold on. Who was Greenie?
Greenie, I'm trying to think of his real name. He
Was he just a
disappeared.
character in the group at that moment?
Yeah, he was just like a guy that we met, and he showed up at, he was hanging out with us, and his nickname was Green Sleeves, and then the song is like Swamper and Greenie, but he was just one of the guys during that period of time who was around, and I can't remember
And who is Wendy?
Wendy. Oh, Wendy O.
O. Yeah.
Yeah, Wendy O. She was like another one. Wendy O was just like this super cool girl. Uh, I don't know if anyone dated her or not, but she would remember she was just a super cool girl that was like part of the scene, It was like Wendy O. Yeah. Fuck, you totally just sparked a memory.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
I literally met you right after all that all went down.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When Jay got in the band and the sausage demo happened, is right when I became working for Primus.
Yeah.
All of that kind of went away, and Trouse went away.
That's where he
On the
went.
rocks
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
He was down in the depths of that for a while, and but he did bounce back. He came back and
Yep.
he got into the program, and it really fucking helped him. And I will say that because of the way I am with that kind of those kinds of things, like I don't drink very much, and I don't do drugs, and I can stop if I did do it. So I didn't have any empathy for him. I didn't understand why he couldn't just stop,
Yeah.
So I was like, it took me until he kind of got into the program, and I realized that shit, chemically, he just wasn't able to, and it took me until that to understand like how addiction works for people. Like, oh
Yeah.
shit, it isn't, not everyone can just stop or say no. Like
Right.
if it's there, they do it. And
Yeah.
it was like one beer would set him off to like, 5 days later, he's, out of money and been paranoid.
Ripped 5 friends off for money to get more
Yep.
drugs.
Oh yeah, that all happened too. I mean,
Oh, man.
there's a lot of mistakes, but he bounced back, as you know.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great, man.
That was a dark period.
Man, it's really great to hear from you, Dave, and talking about the old days, because it's probably the most fascinating to me, because even though we've talked to a lot of your contemporaries, some of it still seems shrouded in this glorious mystery of how
Crack. It's called crack haze.
and
Yeah.
and then how everybody came out of it, as you said, Dave, relatively unscathed, and from an outsider's perspective, it seemed like that New Year's Eve was a family reunion of sorts for all the familiar
totally
faces
was.
that were there.
Totally
It totally
was. Man. It
was.
was so great to see everybody. For
Yeah,
sure.
there were people there that I don't think that group of people had been together for like 30 years.
Yeah, it was a really unique. I mean, every Primus New Year's, everybody comes out. But
Yeah.
that first night with the Limbos was unique. There was a lot of heads there
Yeah.
from the old days, the old guard.
Yeah. It was
It's really
sunny.
cool.
for somehow or another, Primus became like the band that was going to do a New Year's show every year. And so for a few years, there were some pretty big shows and some pretty big venues.
Mhm.
And even when I wasn't touring, I was probably doing prawn song stuff or I wasn't on the road, I would be the one on New Year's to like, look, you need to rent like a giant inflatable dinosaur and figure out how to get Franz and Fred in a diaper, flying him down from from the raft,
Yeah.
or whatever it was. So I would do those New Year's shows and like here's the extravaganza of shit that you have to get. It's like hunting like all the prop houses around the Bay Area to find stuff, just walking through like what looks cool here, can I rent that? So
Yeah.
you know, just
So-
Pop cock right on the pork soda can.
oh man,
Dumping mad balls on everybody.
yep.
Oh, so you were behind some of those? Were you involved in the infamous UFO
Spaceship, dude. Spaceship.
spaceship? Excuse me.
I was there. I was involved.
You were involved. I don't remember all of those.
I don't
things.
think you were even there that night.
Okay.
Tool at the
It's funny.
Oakland
If it was New
Coliseum
Year's and
Arena.
it wasn't there, it would have been weird because I was pretty much at every New Year's show for a long time until maybe just the last 5 years. I haven't made every single one, but
I think that was like 94 into 95.
Yes.
yeah, I had to have been there.
The
But
spaceship came down and Derek fucked up and he wired the lighting for the spaceship into the house dimmer house lights.
See, you're the production guy. You know more about that shit than I do.
Dude, I didn't have anything to do with it, but Derek fucked up. So when they turned the house lights down and the show went on and all the regular lights went on, it was great. But when the spaceship came down, it was on the house dimmer.
Oh, it's dark.
So that nothing worked
Right.
except the microphone in Bob Cox's hand. And he's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And he had this bank of switches for cannons, like confetti cannons and lights, and none of it worked.
And
And we're all standing there on the stage, like looking at it. And Les goes, "Well, there's $30,000 thrown to the wind. What the fuck?"
To be fair, those things weren't the most sturdy things. I don't know how many times you could rehearse that before, like if it worked once, that would have been great.
No, it worked at sound check because the house lights were on.
That's hilarious.
We did it in the daytime, and he shot a cannon off, a confetti cannon. Poof. Okay, these lights worked. And then when the house lights were down,
Yeah.
it was tied into the house lights, so it wasn't on. It was the work, dude.
That's my favorite New Year's Eve
You
anecdote.
weren't there.
Oh yeah, no, I was there. But I don't remember caring if the thing went off or not, I guess.
Dude, I remember the day that I was trying to get room and space in ultrasound, and we had the frame for that spaceship had been stacked up in ultrasound, and I was using it as shelving to store it. I'm like, man, this fucking thing's going away, dude.
Oh yeah.
And Dave Lefkowitz was like, dude, no, let's put it on MTV. We'll want to buy it. Let's put the pork soda can. Yard art. We'll give it away as a contest. And MTV's like, we don't want any of that garbage, dude. No thanks. So you remember that when Steve Wynn blew up the fucking casino in the first one.
Yeah.
Can't remember which one. It was like the round tower, and he's all bye fucking whatever. So I started going bye spaceship. And me and fucking Jason, can't remember his last name. Jason, me and him went there with two grinders blades on skill saws and cut the spaceship up and brought it to recycling.
Did you make any money?
We made $35 and bought a 12-pack of beer, 12-packs of beer, went back to ultrasound at Prawn Song and fucking drank them all.
There you go.
Because we worked all fucking day on that spaceship to cut it into bits.
You guys earned it.
For sure. That is the perfect end to that story.
Just amazing that fucking they spent so much money on that and it didn't work.
Well, what is it? The can't all be zingers.
That's right. That's
Can't
right.
all be there, so.
I wanted to, first of all, you've been very kind with your time, Dave. I appreciate it very much. I wanted to wrap it up with asking you about lasting takeaways for you. I think you've pointed to some, but being able to go out on the road with your friends, see the world, sort of, but spend a lot of quality time with them, and especially in the case of Primus, see this rise to relative fame. What are your takeaways from all these experiences that you hold on to?
I mean, I think I felt very like privileged to be around it, you know, to be part of it, like to be included in all that stuff, you know, because, you know, like I said, I don't necessarily have, or at least it wasn't apparent that I had anything to really to contribute other than being, you know, like people's friend. To kind of have the opportunity to actually be like part of it and, you know, have some hand in the story is like like I said, it was a privilege, you know? And I think with everything else, there's like a lot of good people that you meet and a lot of good experiences. And I would say that I wouldn't trade that part of my life for anything. It was like a great thing to be a part of and to have that experience. It's like not many people get to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's really kind of unusual. And, you know, if I tell people about that part of my life, they're always pretty fascinated.
It was fascinating listening to your memories, Dave. Thank you for
sure.
sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating.
It was fun until I decided it wasn't fun, and then I stopped doing it. You know?
And I think it was wise for you to get off the ride when you knew it was time, Dave, and you had something else you could do. So that's really great because then it didn't, you didn't have a period where you didn't want to be there and loathed it and soured the entire thing.
I have a wife and a kid and dogs and a house now and all that. I didn't have any of that stuff when I was doing that, you know, and I didn't really have any responsibilities to anybody except myself then. Mm-hmm. Post road stuff was like a whole second half of life. Yeah. And that's been, you know, that's been great too.
I know.
Guys, thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much.
You bet.
An amazing job you guys are doing. And
thanks.